सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। We went through the 13th chapter yesterday. We'll have a quick overview of the 13th chapter and then get started with the 14th. The 13th chapter is primarily a discussion about Kshetra and Kshetrajna, the qualities of what constitutes the Kshetra, then the nature of Brahman, some of the qualities that are required by human beings to raise their standard to realize the highest. And there's also discussion about the Prakriti and Purusha concept, which is typical to the Sankhya school of philosophy. And trying to pursue the path, the highest path, and understand the real nature of the Kshetra, Kshetrajna, and the distinctions between the two. Krishna starts off by saying that true knowledge is knowledge of the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. So Kshetra refers to the like a domain or a field or body or realm, any kind of place of work can be called as Kshetra. So the world itself is Kshetra. Kshetrajna is one who knows this world, one who knows the domain, a domain expert, the lord of the um, uh, body, which is the soul or the spirit, or even one who knows the self. All these things, jivatma, like there's different terms are there, different ideas. Basically, is about the person who knows the domain. So once we know the distinction between the two, then we have true knowledge. This is what he says. So he starts off by talking about what constitutes kshetra and what constitutes kshetrajna. In the fifth and sixth shlokas, he lays out the 24 different elements that constitute the kshetra. So the five great elements, which is earth, fire, wind, or air, water, and space. These are traditionally the five elements of in nature. Then ahankara or ego, the sense of self. Then intellect, buddhi, the unseen or avyakta. Now, this avyakta is an interesting term. In D.V. Gundappa discusses a great deal in his commentary on the 13th Adhyaya. Uh, in a nutshell, we can say it's the unseen aspect or the invisible aspect of something, like the potential energy. Right? When you have potential energy, it is not realized, but in due course, it will be realized. So, unseen is something which is not visible, which is not immediately perceivable. Also, something which is beyond us. That can also be the interpretation for avyakta. Then the five sense organs and the five organs of action, the 10 indriyas, the jnanendriyas and karmendriyas. So jnanendriya, is the five sense organs of eyes, nose, ears, tongue, and skin, and the five organs of action: speech, hands, legs, the genital, and the anus. So the five organs of action. Along with this, five sensations. When the organs of sense organs interact with the sensates, then we get the five sensations, which is of sight, smell, taste, sound, and texture. So the different experiences of the sense organs interacting with the sense objects, or the indriya vishaya, they call it, or the sensates, we can call it. So five of that. Then we have desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, awareness, courage, along with all the modifications. So these all together constitute the kshetra. Then from the 7th to the 11th shloka, he lists out qualities that are important for true knowledge. So first is the kshetra, before we go to Kshetrajna, we need to equip ourselves with this true knowledge. And he lists out this qualities. It's very reminiscent of what we studied in the 12th chapter from verses 13 to 20, or from the second chapter we studied from verses 55 to 72. So these are all qualities of a noble person, qualities that we would like to cultivate, that we should aspire to cultivate over the course of time. So here he lists out all the various categories of various qualities, like humility and freedom from hypocrisy, ahimsa and forbearance, uprightness, reverence towards one's teacher, purity in thought, in speech, in action, then steadiness and fortitude, self-control, reasoned disregard towards the senses, absence of egoism, and deep insight into the limitations and the tribulations of birth, death, old age, disease, sickness, pain, all these things. Freedom from selfishness, devoid of undue love for family and community and state. You need to have love for your family, you need to have love for your community, but excessive love, excessive attachment is problematic. Then constant equanimity towards the desirable and undesirable events, likes and dislikes. So constant equanimity and unwavering single-minded focus and devotion to the supreme, and then seeking solitude, avoiding sordid crowds, then sincere persistence in knowing the highest truth, and the quest for the vision of the truth and the supreme. So all these factors, they constitute true knowledge. Anything other than this is ignorance. Then he talks about Jnaya. Jnaya is we know Jnana means knowledge. Jnaya is a word that means the object of our knowledge. What is it that we wish to know? What is Jnaya? Jnaya is what is that which we wish to know? What is the object of our study? So that is called Jnaya. So what are we trying to understand? He discusses that, and once you know that knowledge, then you will be free from all these bonds. You, as good as you are going to be immortal, you are going to be one with the Brahman. After this, there is a discussion on the nature of Brahman. Now, it is so difficult to describe Brahman using words. So they have to resort to certain paradoxical statements, some suggestions, or a poetic expression. I had told you earlier also, a physical experience of something is very, very powerful. When you visit the Himalayas, you see the Himalayas and you experience that grandeur, or you go to the Grand Canyon, or you go to the Amazon forest, wherever, some remarkable place. When you visit, the experience is so powerful. Any kind of writing about it, any words will fall short. Even the greatest poet who goes there, whether it's Kalidasa or Shakespeare or whoever, will fall short when it comes to the actual experience. A person who goes there in person and sees the river Ganga, or sees the Indian Ocean, or any great sight, will experience something far more powerful than what words can capture. Now, when this is the case with the natural beauty of the planet, imagine the all-pervading entity is so difficult to explain that experience using words. Even then, we have to use whatever tools available to us to explain the concept. So therefore, there is an attempt to explain the Brahman using certain suggestions. So it is free from the influence of senses. It illuminates the Indriyas, but is not, is devoid of them. It supports everything, but it remains unattached. It is nearby, it is far away. It is motionless, yet it is moving. It is undivided, but it appears divided among beings. It supports all the creatures, it consumes, it creates. It is the purpose of all knowledge. It is the knowable subject. It is the knowledge. It is seated in the hearts of all beings. It is a light of lights beyond all darkness. So like this, we can see this poetic expression almost is so difficult to pinpoint. Whereas if it is something to do with the physical world, we can give a very accurate description of that. For example, if you've lost a mobile phone or a wallet, or a jacket or something. You can go to the lost and found, or you can go to the police station. You can give a letter which exactly describes the content of your purse. It had this. So some 7 items it had. You can exactly describe it. It will help in identifying. But if you are lost something which is abstract, it is so difficult to explain that, right? So unless you are in a material world, it is easy to explain something. But when when it is something to do with the abstract world, it is much harder. So in a nutshell, Krishna tells Arjuna about the kshetra, the kshetrajna, about the various qualities that one has to cultivate. Then he talks about Prakriti and Purusha. In the Sankhya school of philosophy, which is one of the 6 classical schools, like I mentioned to you, it describes the creation of the world with the interaction of Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is said to have various components, like what we saw earlier, that 5 great elements, the sense organs, the organs of action, ahankara, ego, buddhi, all this, intellect, manas, these kind of things. Purusha is the one which is a witness to the Prakriti. So it is the cause of the experience of pleasure and pain. Prakriti is the material basis of the body and all the associated activities. Purusha is the cause of the experiences. When the Purusha interacts with Prakriti, then it experiences the gunas that arise from Prakriti. But it is not attached to those traits. When there is an attachment to the gunas, then there is rebirth. There is at a better stage or a worse stage, there is a rebirth. But the Purusha is defined as the witness and the approver, the supporter, the enjoyer, and the supreme self, supreme Lord that is ever present. And Purusha and Prakriti both are without beginning, without end. Therefore, a person who truly understands the nature of Purusha, Prakriti, and the different gunas, although they are engaged in worldly activities, they are not attached to worldly activities. And when they are not attached to the activities, then slowly there is a greater opportunity for moksha. And in the 24th and 25th shlokas, Krishna says how different people approach the Atman in different ways. So some people perceive the Supreme Self through meditation, some people through karma, some people through bhakti, some people through jnana. So there are multiple paths to attain this higher state. As long as one can reach this higher state, each person's path is valid for them. You can choose whatever path that is suitable to you, provided one realizes the self. If the path leads to self-realization, it is a valid path for that individual. This has been very clearly said in our tradition, canonized by a famous shloka by Sureshwaracharya, in the Shishya Parampara of Shankara. Krishna also says there are people who are not having access to this kind of knowledge of jnana, bhakti, karma, all these things. They just hear about the self from other people. They hear about the Atman from some other sources and sincerely practice it. Even they attain the highest state. So even though one may not have a direct instruction, you may not have gone to some high quality boarding school, you may not have gone to Ivy League university, you may not have cleared some UPSC exam, nothing matters. As long as you are sincerely bringing into practice whatever you have learned from even whatever you have heard. So it doesn't matter. One has to implement that in their daily life. That if they do that, they will transcend. Finally, he talks about how when a realized person observes the diversity of existence as having a common source in the Supreme and all manifestations arising from that alone, then he becomes one with Brahman. So this common source of all the manifestations is a very important idea that we find in our tradition. I think one of our friends had put a comment. Shilpa shared yesterday. I forget his name. I'm just see if I can look it up. But they had mentioned about how even in the uh, Darwinian theory. Yeah, so this is Vijay Venkatrajji has said that common origin of diverse life is Darwinism's basic concept in biology, and of course I'm not saying the Gita and Darwin theory are same, but as a cancer biologist, this is interesting. Just a thought that more than 5,000 years ago this has occurred. This is an interesting observation, Vijayji. Lot of things in Indian tradition, in our philosophy, in our school of philosophy, is derived from observation of the world, observation of nature, observation of the physical world, and contemplation. So these are the two major tools that they had. So using these tools, whatever they could get, they got the best out of it. Whether they had a scientific bent of mind or not, well, clearly they had a scientific bent of mind. We can see this in the real science that was developed in India over the years. However, when we look at the schools of philosophy, the observations, the general observations of nature that our ancient savants had done, they are kind of very general observations, and later on probably that may have been inspiration for scientists, or it may have independently scientists may have also observed this and developed a framework and a mathematical theory or a certain kind of proofs for this. Now even in the, for example, in the Vaisheshika Darshana, we have some kind of loosely sort of atomic theory, right? So the manner in which they have come up with the atomic theory is very different from what we understand today. So they approached it philosophically by saying, if we divide, they did a mind experiment. If we take a piece of stone or metal or some material and break it down into smaller and smaller bits, we cannot break it down into infinite particles, because if there are infinite particles, then using those infinite particles we can actually create infinity. So they reasoned that a material should be made up of a finite number of very, very small particles. So this is the way in which they came up with understanding the matter, right? So it is very different from Dalton's atomic theory, or later what Niels Bohr came up with and other people came up with, because here it is more observational using other equipment, and they have more sophisticated understanding of mathematics as compared to the rishis of the past. So therefore we should I think I had mentioned this earlier in one of the classes, that when we try to say, oh, in India, we already had quantum mechanics, we had mass destruction weapons in Mahabharata and all this kind of thing, or we had quantum mechanics in Vedanta, we are doing a disservice both to our rishis, to the great scientists, in one go. Because these great scientists, whether it's Galileo or Newton or Einstein, all these people toiled their entire life to give us these fantastic theories. And if we don't respect their work, and the rishis who have dedicate their entire life to understand the inner nature of human existence, we are trying to put some atomic theory in what they have said. So their objective is totally different. Let us respect them, and the scientist's objective is very different, and let us respect them also. It's important to realize that whatever such things, when we see in the Gita also, these are all philosophical approach to things, as opposed to Darwin theory, which is from observation of nature, experimentation, and so on. Of course, Vijayji clearly mentioned that he's not trying to compare the two, but the idea that such a thing can be seen 5,000 years ago is really remarkable, and completely agree with him that when we see some of these statements and Mahavakyas in Upanishads and in Rigveda Samhita and all that, we are amazed to see the level of sophistication of our ancient people. No doubt about that. Then finally, he talks about the spiritual insight that is important to recognize the difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and only when they know this distinction do they attain true knowledge. So with this, we come to the end of the 13th Adhyaya. Let's go to the I'll share my screen. Okay, there's a question from Nagendra Prasad ji. Has DVG given any more insights into why one appears as many in this Maya? Well, the reality is that the one appears as many through Maya. So the mechanism has been described variously, and again, these are all speculation. It's not a scientific proof of some kind that you can derive it and explain it. But the general principle is that because of Maya, the single Brahman appears as many, appears as diverse in our world. Okay, now you can see my screen. So 14th chapter 14. The 14th chapter is, now we start off with the study of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. I briefly explained to you what is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And here, through the course of this chapter and then the 17th and part of the 18th, we'll get an overview of what Krishna says about sattva, rajas, tamas. Now, there was a question yesterday, a comment from one of the participants. I'll just pull it out in a second. They were mentioning about how sattva, rajas, and tamas are all equally important. I think this is Savita ji. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, Savita Shankar ji had mentioned. So how all these are important when we look at our life. Now, it is true that all sattva, rajas, tamas, these are all present in nature. However, there is also a hierarchy with sattva, rajas, tamas. So she was mentioning how all of them are important. Now, whether they are important or not, the fact remains that all of them are there. We all have sattva, rajas, tamas in different percentages. But when we look at the Gita, we will see what Krishna has to say about sattva, rajas, tamas. So after we discuss, after we take a look at what Krishna says about it, then we can bring it up for discussion. So Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Param bhuya pravakshyami jnananam jnanamuttamam yad jnatva munayah sarve param siddhi mito gataha. So I'll tell you more about the supreme wisdom which transcends all knowledge. By knowing this, the munis, the sages, have attained the highest perfection, Krishna says. Bhuyah param jnananam uttamam jnanam pravakshyami. Sarve munayah yat jnatva itah param siddhim gataha. So bhuyah param jnananam uttamam. So the best and the supreme wisdom, jnanam uttamam jnanam pravakshyami. So it is, transcends, it is better than all knowledge. I will tell you about this pravakshyami. Sarve munayah, all the sages, all the munis, yat jnatva, knowing which, itaha param siddhim gataha, they've attained the highest perfection by knowing this wisdom. So what is this wisdom? He's going to tell us. We will look at these verses. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Param bhuya pravakshyami. I think your screen froze. Yeah. Param bhuya pravakshyami.
Param bhuya pravakshyami.
Jnananam jnanamuttamam.
Jnananam jnanamuttamam.
Yajñatva munayah sarve.
Yajñatva munayah sarve.
Param siddhimito gataha.
Param siddhimito gataha.
Then he says, idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha Sargepi nopajayante pralayena vyathanti cha. So, contemplating on this wisdom, they have reached the supreme state and they remain unaffected by creation or dissolution. So, idam jnanam upashritya, having taken refuge in this knowledge, having offered their offered the focus to this knowledge, having spending time contemplating on this knowledge, mama sadharmyam agataha, they have reached my state, they have reached they are as good as my state, they have reached the supreme state. Sarge na upajayante pralaye apichana vyathanti. So during sarga is creation. So during during creation, they are not affected. And pralaya, during dissolution, they are not affected. Na vyathanti. So they are not affected by creation or dissolution. So once they reach the supreme state, then during the time of sarga, they are not born. During the time of pralaya, they are not killed. They are always, they are reach this eternal state where they are always existent. Basically, it's a higher state. Realizing this, one reaches the higher state. Idam jnanam upashritya.
Idam jnanam upashritya.
Mama sadharmyam agataha.
Mama sadharmyam agataha.
Sargepi nopajayante.
Sargepi nopajayante.
Pralayena vyathanti cha.
Pralayena vyathanti cha.
Thank you. Then mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhavah sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. So primordial nature is my womb in which I plant my seed. All the creatures are born from that. So Bharata, addressed to Arjuna, mama yonihi mahad brahma. So primordial nature, primordial, the mahat is my yoni womb, my womb. Tasmin aham garbham dadhami. So I plant my seed, or I impregnate it. Tataha sarva bhutanam sambhavaha bhavati. So all creatures are born from that. This kind of basic idea of creation is a few of these verses talk about the nature of creation, but it's very sketchy. The Vedas talk about the idea of Srishti in greater detail. Mama yonir mahad brahma.
Mama yonir mahad brahma.
Tasmin garbham dadamyaham.
Tasmin garbham dadhamyaham.
Sambhavaha sarva bhutanam.
Sambhavaha sarva bhutanam.
Tato bhavati bharata.
Tato bhavati bharata.
Sarva yonishu kaunteya मूर्तयः संभवन्ति याः तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः aham बीजप्रदः पिता. So whatever life forms develop in any womb, primordial nature is their mother and I am their seed-giving father. Kaunteya, son of Kunti, sarva yonishu, in all the wombs, yaha murtayah sambhavanti. So whatever manifest or whatever concrete material things that come, that murtayaha means something which is manifest, sambhavanti, that are born, tasam yonihi mahad brahma. The mahad brahma, primordial nature, is their the womb. Aham bija pradah pita. So I am the seed giving father. I am the one, the father gives the seed or the semen. So sarva yonishu kaunteya.
Sarva yonishu kaunteya.
Murtayah sambhavanti yaha.
Murtayah sambhavanti yaha.
Tasam brahma mahad yonihi.
Tasam brahma mahad yonihi.
Aham bija pradah pita.
Aham bija pradah pita.
So in these verses, he's just giving a little bit of the creation part. Then he starts off with Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas from the fifth shloka. Sattvam, Rajas, Tama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. So Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are the three gunas. These gunas are born from Prakriti and they bind the imperishable Atman to the body. Mahabaho, mighty armed. Sattvam, Rajaha, Tamaha, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, iti Prakriti Sambhavaha Gunaha. These are the three traits born of Prakriti. Dehe Avyayam Dehinam Nibadnanti. So the Avyayam Dehinam, the imperishable Atman, is bound to the Deha, the body, by the three gunas. Now, in the, even my co-author, Dr. Sri Krishna, had pinged me this morning. In the second Adhyaya, we have all the qualities of the Atman, if you remember. Na jayate, mriyate va, kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya. All those things he says, it is not born, it does not die. When the body dies, it does not die. Then it cannot be burnt by fire. Nayanam chindanti shastrani, it cannot be torn apart by weapons. It cannot be wet by water. It is beyond thought, it is beyond form, it is beyond change. But perhaps one thing that affects the Atma is attachment, is the binding to the body, is probably, it does not say the soul cannot be bound. It is not free from bondage. So that is perhaps, one of the things that we see in the nature of the Atman. It's bound to the body because of the gunas. So guna basically refers to the inherent traits of individuals. But here specifically, they are divided into three qualities, three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So sattvam, rajas, tama iti.
Sattvam, rajas, tama iti.
Gunaha prakriti sambhavaha.
Gunaha prakriti sambhavaha.
Nibadhnanti mahabaho.
Nibadhnanti mahabaho.
Dehe dehinam avyayam.
Dehe dehinam avyayam.
Thank you. Then Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Badhnati Jnana Sangena Chanagha. Sattva, which is pure, luminous, and free from distress, binds one by attachment to knowledge and serenity. So Anagha, like one who is free of all papa, sinless one. Tatra nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sattvam sukha sangena jnana sangena cha badhnati. So nirmalatvat, it is very pure, nirmala, without any mala, without any impurities. So it's very pure. Prakashakam, it is luminous, and it is anamayam, it is free from distress. It binds one. It binds, still it binds, but it binds by what? Attachment to anamayam sattvam, sukha sangena, attachment to pleasure, attachment to comfort, attachment to serenity, jnana sangena, attachment to knowledge, cha badhnati, it binds by attachment to knowledge and serenity. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat.
Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Sukha sangena badhnati.
Sukha sangena badhnati.
Jnana sangena chanagha.
Jnana sangena chanagha.
Now we come to rajas. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi trishna sanga samudbhavam tan nibadhnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. Rajas, marked by passion, is the source of thirst and anxiety. It binds one to activity. So, Kaunteya, son of Kunti, Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam. Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam, Rajaha Ragatmakam Vidhi. So, Trishna and Asanga, Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam. It is kind of the source of Trishna, which is thirst and anxiety. It is a source of thirst and anxiety. Rajaha, Rajas. Ragatmakam Vidhi. It is marked by passion. Ragatmaka. Raga is passion. It's marked by passion. Tat karma sangena dehinam nibadnati. So it binds through attachment to action. So when if somebody in Rajas, he's bound, he's attached to action. So Rajo Ragatmakam Vidhi.
रजो रागात्मकं विद्धि
Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam.
तृष्णासङ्गसमुद्भवं
Tannibadhnati Kaunteya.
तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय
Karma Sangena Dehinam.
कर्मसङ्गेन देहिनम्.
What about tamas? Tamastvajnanajam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabhihi tan nibadhnati bharata. So tamas, which is born of ignorance and delusion, makes a person careless, lethargic and sleepy. Bharata. Sarvadehinam mohanam tamaha tu ajnanajam vidhi. Tat pramadalasya nidrabihi nibadhnati. So sarvadehinam mohanam. So it is something which is it deludes everybody. It deludes all the people. Sarvadehinam mohanam tamas to ajnanajam vidhi. It is born of ignorance. It is born of ajnana. Tat pramada alasya nidra. So the three things. One is pramada, which is carelessness, aloofness, sort of not bothered about things. So yeah, that kind of attitude, cavalier attitude. Lethargy, kind of always lazy, alasya, and nidra, sleep. Makes so it binds one to carelessness, attachment, in lethargy and sleep. The nature of tamas. Tamasvajnanajam vidhi.
तमस्वज्ञानजं विद्धि.
So here tamas plus tamaha plus tu plus ajnanajam vidhi. So tamas tu ajnanajam vidhi.
तमस्त्वज्ञानजं विद्धि.
Mohanam sarvadehinam.
मोहनं सर्वदेहिनां.
Pramadalasya nidrabihi.
प्रमादालस्य निद्राभिः.
Tannibadhnati bharata.
तन्निबध्नाति भारत.
So the idea is sattva, rajas, tamas. These three gunas, these are temporary states, and they are all present in most of us. They are different kind of bondages to the Atma. Okay. The ultimate idea is for us to go beyond the three gunas and realize the true self. Okay. So in the set of three gunas, the hierarchy is Rajas is better than Tamas. Sattva is better than Rajas. Going beyond the three gunas is the best. This is the idea which is laid out in the Gita. Now we have got an overview of the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Now further qualities of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas are being discussed by Krishna. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajaha karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tamaha pramade sanjayatyuta. So sattva brings happiness, rajas gives rise to action, tamas shrouds knowledge and binds one to delusion. So Bharata, sattvam sukhe sanjayati. Sattva gives rise to sukha, to pleasure, to comfort, to happiness. Rajaha karmani. Rajas gives rise to action. Tamaha tu jnanam avritya pramade sanjayati. So tamas gives rise to carelessness that engulfs knowledge, that clouds knowledge, shrouds jnana and binds one to delusion. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati.
सत्वं सुखे संजयति
Rajaha karmani bharata.
रजः कर्मणि भारत
Jnanam avritya tu tamaha.
ज्ञानमावृत्य तु तमः
Pramade sanjayatyuta.
प्रमादे संजयत्युत
Rajastamaschabhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. Rajas sattvam tamaschaiva. Tamah sattvam rajastatha. Very important verse which says sattva predominates, subduing rajas and tamas. Other times rajas prevails, overpowering sattva and tamas, and at other times tamas sets in, masking sattva and rajas. So among the three gunas there's always one that dominates over the other two at a given point of time. So bharata rajah tamah cha abhibhuya sattvam bhavati. So sattva predominates over rajas and tamas. Rajah sattvam cha abhibhuya tamah eva bhavati. So rajas predominates sattva and tamas. Tatha tamah sattvam abhibhuya rajaha. So tamas predominates over sattva and rajas. So at any point of time, one is the dominant guna. Rajas tamas chabhibhuya
रजस्तमश्चाभिभूय
sattvam bhavati bharata.
सत्वं भवति भारत
Rajah sattvam tamaschaiva.
रजः
You're muted. Yeah.
रजः सत्वं तमश्चैव
Tamah sattvam rajastatha.
तमः सत्वं रजस्तथा
सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन् प्रकाश उपजायते ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्यात् विवृधं सत्वमित्युत. So when the glow of wisdom emanates from all the gates of the body, indeed sattva is dominant. So asmin dehe, in this body, sarvadvareshu, in all the gates of the body, yada jnanam prakasha, there is the glow of wisdom emanates. Upajayate, it emanates, it comes. Tada sattvam vivridham uta iti vidyat. So then know that sattva is dominant. So we saw earlier in the fifth chapter that the body is like a city of 9 gates, Navadvara Pure Dehi. So these 9 gates, the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, the genital and the anus, these are the gates, 9 gates of the body. And the idea, this is of course a poetic thing. There is no glow of wisdom which will come from your eyes like a light. It's just that from every part of your body, not just your face, your hands, every part of your body, there is the glow of wisdom. There is this feeling that we get when we sit with somebody who is really wise, who's really calm. They don't have to say anything. When we sit with them, we can realize that intuitively. We cannot pinpoint. They may not be having a smile on their face, or they may not be jumping with joy. But just when we look at them, sometimes we feel that they are so peaceful, they're so relaxed, they're so calm, they're not perturbed. And when we see certain people, we feel, oh, they're so troubled, they're so much in tension, something is not okay. When we meet our friends also, sometimes we say, what happened? You're looking very down today, you're looking very tense. What are the indications for that? That kind of glow of wisdom which is there, then sattva is predominating. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivridham sattwamityuta.
विवृद्धं सत्त्वमित्युत.
So this is the nature. We see that there is a glow of wisdom when there is sattva. Lobha pravritir arambaha karmanam ashamah spruha rajasyetani jayante vivridhe bharata rishabha. When rajas predominates, then one is governed by greed and vigor, desire, unrest, and constant activity. So Bharata Rishabha, the great bull among the Bharatas, Lobha Pravriti, Karmanam Arambaha, Ashamaha, Spruha, Etani, Rajasi, Vivridhe, Jayante. So when Rajas is predominant, then all these things are, one is governed by Lobha, which is greed, Lobha Pravrti, then Karmanam, kind of always working, constant activity. So your, Karmanam Arambaha, then Ashamaha. So you're always trying to start something new, want to do something. Unrest. Ashamaha is like you don't have Shama, you don't have the quality of serenity. And Spruha, desire. I want this, I want to accomplish this. So Etani. So this is the nature of Rajas. Always active. Oh, I have to do this, I have to finish this, I have to go there, I have to do this. This is the nature of Rajas. So Lobha Pravrtir Arambaha.
लोभः प्रवृत्तिरारम्भः
Karmanam Ashamaspruha.
कर्मणामशमस्पृहा
Rajasyetani Jayante.
रजस्येतानि जायन्ते
Vivruddhe Bharatarshabha.
विवृद्धे भरतर्षभ.
Now, what about tamas? Aprakasho pravritischa, aprakasho pravritischa, pramado moha evacha, tamasyetani jayante vivruddhe kurunandana. So, darkness, delusion, lethargy, and negligence arise when tamas is predominant. So, kurunandana, the joy of the kurus, the child of the kurus. Aprakashaha, that means darkness. Prakasha means light. Prakasha, something which is brilliant, radiant. Aprakasha, darkness. Apravritihi. So pravriti is a work or nature of the person or the profession, activity. So apravritihi. So that means kind of lethargy, not doing anything. Then pramadaha, carelessness, like this cavalier attitude. Moha, which is attachment, delusion. Eva cha etani tamasi vivruddhe jayante. So these are the things when tamas is predominant, these are the qualities to expect. Aprakasho pravrittischa.
अप्रकाशो प्रवृत्तिश्च
Pramado moha evacha.
प्रमादो मोह एव च
Tamasyetani jayante.
तमस्येतानि जायन्ते
Vivruddhe kurunandana.
विवृद्धे कुरु नन्दन.
Then he says, Yada satve pravriddhetu pralayam yati dehabhrit tadottama vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate. So when the soul departs from the body, when the Atma departs from the Deha, when Sattva is predominant, the soul or the Atma attains the pure worlds of the wise. Now, when we say soul, it's just an easy usage. Atma is Atma, which we know as the inner higher self. So when the Atma departs at the time when Sattva is predominant, then the Atma attains the higher worlds of the wise. Now, we have seen earlier in the 8th chapter, the state of mind that prevails at the time of one's death is often a reflection of the kind of life that they have led. Right? So, therefore, if somebody has led a life of sattva, they attain the pure worlds of the wise. Yada sattve pravriddhetu.
यदा सत्त्वे प्रवृद्धेतु
Pralayam yati dehabhrit.
प्रलयं याति देहभृत्
Tadottama vidam lokan.
तदोत्तमविदां लोकान्
Amalan pratipadyate.
अमलान् प्रतिपद्यते.
I forgot to go to the Anvaya Krama. So Sattve Pravriddhe. So when the Sattva is predominant, to Yada Dehabhrit, the one who has, when the one who has got the body, Dehabhrit is like the one which is occupying the body, the Atma. Pralayam Yati at the time of the dissolution, Tada Uttama Vidam Amalam Lokan Pratipadyate. So Uttama Vidam, the kind of superior and high quality Amalam, pure world of the righteous people, Pratipadyate, attains this state of the wise. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tatha pralinas tamasi mudha yonishu jayate. So departing in the state rajas, one takes birth among those who are always attached to action. Likewise, when somebody dies, when they are in a state of tamas, they are born among the deluded people. So rajasi pralayam gatva, when one when one attains death or the dissolution in the state when rajas is predominant, karma sangishu jayate. So then one is born among those who are attached to action. Tatha tamasi pralinaha mudha yonishu jayate. So those who are engrossed in tamas, who are dying in the state of tamas, mudha yonishu. So the kind of deluded wombs in the when they are born again, they are born to some deluded people. So it is important to be in a state of sattva than rajas. Better to be in rajas than tamas. This is again the idea. Rajasi pralayam gatva.
Rajasi pralayam gatva.
Karma sangishu jayate.
Karma sangishu jayate.
Tatha pralinas tamasi.
Tatha pralinas tamasi.
Mudha yonishu jayate.
Mudha yonishu jayate.
Let's take this verse to conclude today's session. Karmanah sukritasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukkham ajnanam tamasah phalam. So the fruit of sattva, the reward of sattva is purity and goodness. The fruit of rajas is pain, and the fruit of tamas is ignorance. So sukritasya karmanah nirmalam satvikam phalam mahuhu. So sukritasya karmanah, the good actions, goodness, and nirmalam, purity, is satvikam phalam ahuhu. It is said to be the fruit of sattva. Rajasaha phalam tu dukkham. The fruit of rajas is dukkha, because eventually, even though something gives sukha, if one is constantly craving, constantly trying to get something out of it, eventually sukha will lead to dukkha. Whereas if it is if you want lasting purity and goodness, then sattva is the path. And tamasaha phalam ajnanam. The fruit of tamas, the result of tamas is ignorance. So if we are in tamas, we will attain ignorance. If we are in rajas, we will attain little sukha, but mostly dukkha, because we are craving for things. When we are in sattva, then pure and goodness and purity will be the reward. So karmanah sukritasyahu.
Karmanah sukritasyahu.
Satvikam nirmalam phalam.
Satvikam nirmalam phalam.
Rajasastu phalam dukkham.
Rajasastu phalam dukkham.
Ajnanam tamasah phalam.
Ajnanam tamasah phalam.
So the 14th chapter is primarily discussing about these qualities. So then there is some more ideas about sattva, rajas, and tamas, and what determines all these qualities, what characteristics are determining these qualities. We'll come to that tomorrow. Unfortunately, I have to step out, going to another city, so I will leave you all in a minute, and that's 5 minutes earlier than our usual time. We'll continue tomorrow. Then there are a few questions also. There's something on a Srishti Drishti Vada, which is a technical thing which you can take it up separately if they're interested. We can discuss it. Then Pooja Srimali ji has asked a question: how does one maintain Triguna in professional world? So we'll bring this up for discussion tomorrow as we continue this. I think it is better to discuss about this once we finish the part of the 14th chapter, the 17th, and the initial part of the 18th chapter where he discusses the gunas. Once we finish that, then I think we can bring up this topic for discussion. So thank you very much, and we'll meet tomorrow at the same time. Namaste. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Hariji.